Welcome, everybody, to Friends of Failure. I'm your host, Sam, and this is my co-host, Megan.
Heyo.
And today, I would like to introduce to you an Olympian. Our guest today is Chris Cook. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Hi, very well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Very excited to talk with you today.
Awesome.
Glad you're here.
Oh, thanks for the chance. Thanks for the chance to share. That's what I love doing. And I've been on tons of podcasts especially over lockdown. It's been amazing for that. And I've been really excited about this one.
Yeah, I appreciate that. What better time to jump on podcasts and do interviews than during that whole crazy situation, right?
Yeah.
When you have no choice but to be in your house.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I'm not very good. I never used to be really good at the virtual stuff, but since it was kind of the only option, I went down that route and structured my business down that route through lockdown. And it's been the best thing I've ever done. So I kind of think, sometimes it's a forced evolution, isn't it? And you just got to go with the flow at times, I guess.
Yeah,
100%.
Right out of the gate, talking about persistence and learning.
Yeah, sorry. I'm all about it. But it's the actions, isn't it? Like we can talk about it all day long, but it's actually the actions that back up what you're saying. That's the real stuff. Because if you don't practice and put down in actions what you speak about, it's just words. It's just words.
100%. 100%. And one thing too that I just want to touch base on is, there was a lot of bad stuff that did come out of, let's say, 2020. But even through the bad stuff, there was still a way to find like new ways and new opportunities and whatnot, right? And it's a crazy bumpy ride, right?
Yeah.
I think maybe you've experienced that throughout your life, right?
Yeah, lots.
You never know what's coming at you. You never know what's coming at you.
Do you know, that's so interesting. I mean, like you mentioned earlier on that I'm an Olympian. I feel very, very blessed to have gone to 2 Olympic Games. I also got the chance to work on a program which helps young athletes develop themselves through. So we identify the next Olympics as their Olympics, but we take them to the previous one to get them experience. So they don't get to compete, but they get to go and see what it's all about. And I've been very lucky to be involved in 2 of those programs, one in London 2012 with the Team GB, and Tokyo just gone. Now we were going to take them out to Tokyo, but then good old COVID got in the way.
Yeah, that was a rough
slight issue,
right?
Yeah.
It's kind of slight global virus going on.
Yeah.
So we couldn't go out there. So we brought it back to the UK and we did it in the UK. But the thing that really struck me about it was when the global pandemic kicked off and we were pushed back on everything, the one thing that came to mind was, how was I going to be grateful of this in 5 years' time was the question I really need to ask. And it's a really difficult one, but actually it starts with you putting things in place now. They always do, what's that old saying? The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best one is now.
Mm-hmm.
and it's that analogy that we as a team started to look at. So there's a team of 3 or 4 of us pulling this whole program together for Team GB. And we ended up asking ourselves some really deep, dark questions in order to put something beautiful in place.
Mm-hmm.
We did that during Tokyo, but we were down in London, and it brought something completely different. So Sam, I'm on the same page as you. If you might not know what's coming around the corner, you can't be prepared for anything, but you can be ready. And there's a difference between being prepared and ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can be clueless and ready, but
yeah.
It's
totally.
Well, so there's a song by a group called Listener called My 5-Year Plan. And my brother actually showed it to me years and years ago. And it's something that it's almost like poetry, but it's kind of in a musical form. And it's something that's really interesting to me because, growing up, I had to wait until I was well into being an adult to go, hey, it makes sense to have a short-term plan and you need to have that long-term plan. And what I love about that song is I'll pop up on a playlist every once in a while and it reminds me of like, when's the last time you thought about the next 5 years?
Yeah.
And something like, I guess as an Olympian, right, it would definitely apply to, hey, you're swimming every day or you're practicing every day because 4 years from now, does that ever get really difficult in terms of the mind aspect of that, of like, oh my gosh, I have to do this again. I have to do it again. Like, yeah.
Yeah, do you know, I've said it 100 times before. Excellence is boring and painful. It really is. If you want to be excellent, if you want to be exceptional at something, you have to accept monotony. The second thing you have to accept is it's bloody painful. It hurts. And we've got to turn up, we've got to show up, we've got to keep going. I mean, my training sessions would start at like 5 o'clock in the morning. So we were up 4:30, 4:45, we'd get down to the pool, get the pool ready. And it was just Groundhog Day. You do 2 hours blasting up and down the pool in the morning. You go do a gym session, you fit university or college, whatever stage you were at around it. All the pressures, you would never let off with kind of, oh, just hand your assignments in later, or you can dodge that exam. It was, no, if you're not there on that date, you fail. So we had the same pressures as everybody else, but then you go back on an evening and do another 2 hours blasting up and down. And it does get painful and boring, but the thing I love about it, or the thing I loved about it, and it set me up now for the business that I'm in now, is that it gives you that chance to kind of get your head down in the moment, but then realize you're building something special that's about to happen in the future. And that in its turn will become a moment of your life. And I remember when I won the Commonwealth Games in 2006. I won 2 gold medals and a silver, and became double Commonwealth champion. It was a good week in the office, I'll tell you that.
Just not a bad day. Not a bad day.
Yeah. And I always remember that the slogan for the games was a moment in time. And my coach, Ian Oliver, he texted me the night before I was going to race at the Commonwealth Games in the final. And he said, we've been working on a moment in time all our lives. This is just another one. And it was what he was really saying in that moment is just do what you've always done. Do what you did on that cold November morning when it was raining. It was horrible. Just put another block of excellence in place and do it today and do it tomorrow and keep doing it. And before we know it, we create something wonderful. And we can always connect those dots looking back. It's very difficult to connect them looking forwards. You just got to trust it.
Yeah, I think a lot of us find comfort in hindsight.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's a process. And I think a lot of people get overwhelmed by the process, especially if you're not the top of your sport. I remember I played softball in high school and we did a lot of running, and I'm not a runner. I like softball, but I'm not a runner. And one of the girls came up to me after a big run, and she was super in shape, always like top of the pack. And she was like, I just want you to know this is hard for me too. Like, just because I'm faster than you doesn't mean it's easy. Like, I'm still working, like it's still a workout. Like, it's a lot of people
really
think
powerful.
Yeah. And it was kind of wild for me because I was like, I thought you were just like having a good time and I was dying for breath. But it's hard for people to look at like Olympians and then they go, oh, it's just easy for them. This is just an easy thing. They're experts. They know what they're doing. They don't have to work at it, but it's years and years of you building on that. Like you said, the building blocks.
Don't you feel that imposter syndrome? I don't like calling it a syndrome. I like calling it imposter moment because I don't feel it's a syndrome. I don't feel it's a disease that has got us. It's just a moment that we all have. Don't you feel we all have that from time to time?
Oh yeah, 100%.
And I think it's really comforting that we're starting to share these things now. And I'm hearing a lot of podcasts where people are just kind of spilling the beans and opening up. And it's really good because actually the Me Too thing has a lot of value in it. I know we can kind of go down that route and whinge and moan a bit too much, but actually starting those conversations, having those conversations opens it out for people to go, oh, you feel like that too? Me too. It kind of helps release the handbrake, doesn't it? And it eases things up. Definitely.
100%.
It gets wild because we live in a world where it contradicts itself a lot, right? Hey, it's not okay to compare yourself, right? Like it's going to lead to like mental struggles, right? If I compare myself as a swimmer to an Olympian swimmer, I mean, that's not a strong suit for me. You throw me in the water, I'm not going to drown, but I'm not racing anybody.
Not going to move very quick.
I'm doggy paddling from one side to the other, like whatever, right? And like it's super strange because, you know, it's like, hey, you know, we should all appreciate each other for our own value, but then you go on social media and it's all just comparing this to that, right? And that is pretty powerful, where, you know, someone goes, hey, like, I see you, and even though like we're not performing the same way, it's like we're both still putting in work. You know, like, have you ever met someone that can do like 50 pull-ups in a row?
Yeah, they make me sick because I struggle.
It's insane, because like the most pull-ups I've ever been able to do, like one go, like I jump on there and I'm just do as many as I can, was like 23. Yeah. And I've seen multiple people in my life who are like 51, 52, and you know, you want to like start making the rules more strict, and they're like, yeah, go ahead. Like, I can do this all day. You want to put a weight on my body? Let's go. And it's wild.
It is wild. It's amazing though when you meet people who do something extraordinary and you really start to delve into their backstory, because often there's that debate whether it's natural or whether it's nurtured. Well, actually, I've never seen talent without being nurtured do exceptionally well. There's always a backstory of them building that process. And I think that's key, that we often tip up to things and we only ever see the tip of the iceberg. We don't see what's happened before, and we judge it on the tip of the iceberg. So we go, oh, there we go. That guy, he's just done 51 pull-ups. You know, but we don't go, hang on a second, he's probably had like 20 years of building up to that one, moment. And that's I think you're absolutely right. I think that's one of the big dangers in our society now, is we're constantly being dragged off in different directions with our attention to compare and contrast ourselves. But there's a fantastic read, if ever you've read it, Asking It As Given. Have you read that book before? By Esther and Jerry Hicks. It's a great read. It's a little bit left field, so don't be frightened of it. It's a little bit out there. But they talk about how, and it's a little bit more kind of the universe and that type of thing. You know, there's universal force that kind of connects us all. And the premise of it is we were born into contrast. So accept it. We're here to experience it. We're here to experience the failures, the hurt, the pain, the heartbreaks. We're here to experience that. And when we embrace it as a challenge, or we almost embrace it as, this is part of my journey, what I often find is there's an easing up of the process. There's an opportunity there to really embrace it and take it as part of your own, instead of going, oh my God, this has happened to me. Woe is me. This is really bad. We look at it, and now I start to look at things and think, something big's happening. I'm here to learn something. What is it I'm here to learn? What is it I'm here to do? And in moments like that you described, Sam, it's perfect that for me, because I then stop and ask myself, do I need to compare myself to this person in order to feel great? How many times do we do that? We compare how we feel inside, how someone else's life looks on the outside. Yeah. And it leaves you feeling awful. I don't care who you are.
Yeah. And it's surface level too. Cause like you said, it's the iceberg. You're only seeing this tiny little moment in time where they're like, hey, my life is awesome. And then you go, ooh, mine's not feeling too great right now. Yeah. I really like the part where you talk about how life is contrast. It's not ever going to be just smooth sailing, super easy. Like nothing's going to bump that boat. But as an Olympian, I think part of like that win has to be the failures you went through to get there, feeling so good at the end of like, it was worth it. Like definitely. I struggled through all of this, and at the end of the day, I feel like I achieved something.
Definitely. I think when you fail at something, I don't like calling it failure, actually. I like calling it drop back or push back or something like that, because failing at something is you failing at a task. You being a failure is you attaching yourself to it. Yeah. My sports psychologist always says that there's a difference between failing and failure. And he's absolutely right. There's a guy called Simon Hartley, and he said, failure is you saying, I've failed in the process at this. Failing is saying, actually, this thing hasn't worked. I best get up and have another go, or pick it up again. There's a big difference between the two. But when you look at something that's failed, there's a real good opportunity again to go, well, okay, the process didn't work. So let's have a look at what didn't work on the lead up and see if we can identify what will work the next time. Because the nature of the beast, especially in sport, is you're going to get back up. You're going to get back up. You're going to lift that bar. You're going to dive in that pool. You're going to run around that track. You're going to run around in a circle again. You're going to do it because that's the nature of the beast. And you're absolutely right, Megan. You know, this would be a pretty boring podcast if you got people on who went, hey, it was a straight line straight to the top. You know, I didn't have any bumps in the road, but there was so many that I would get back after a 4-year cycle and go, why haven't I made the team again? You know, I got into my mid-20s and I hadn't made an Olympic team. I hadn't even made a senior Great Britain team. And the predicament I was in, or the position that I was in Great Britain, was there were 5 or 6 other breaststroke swimmers who were better than me, who were all in the top 20 in the world. It was really extraordinary. So I was in the top 20 in the world, but I was only 5th or 6th in the Great Britain rankings. It was extraordinary. Now, the great thing about this, and I didn't see this until I eventually got there, there's a real big bonus about all of this, is I would turn up to a local meet. I wouldn't have to drive very far, 20, 30 miles, 100 miles, go and race against people who were better than me, but who were in the top 20 in the world. Now, once I eventually started picking them off and getting better and better and better, eventually I got to number 1 in Great Britain. When I went to those big meets, all of a sudden I was in the top 5 in the world.
Wow.
That was the trade-off. That was the payoff. I didn't realize I had my head down in Leeds or Manchester or London racing against home turf athletes. But actually what I was doing is I was practicing becoming world-class. And I didn't even know it. I didn't even know it. And when I got to those world-class events, I was standing there and I was guaranteed a final. I was guaranteed to go through the heats, semis and finals. I was like, oh my God. And that was the trade-off, was when we accept the challenge for what it is, we often get something completely extraordinary out of it, out the other end.
Yeah.
It's really hard because not only myself, but other people, you know, that I know or have met, both of you probably, where, you know, it's all of it turns into a mind game, right?
Yeah.
And of course, obviously, as an Olympian, you were doing the physical work, but it was your mind over matter. You made your body do that, right? Like you did the grinding, right? And what's super strange to me is I've been through physical tasks before. I've never had that tedious of work physically, right? But I think what happens with a lot of people is what they do is they go, okay, I'm tired of looking at, hey, I have 4 years to get to this point. So you just break it down to like, okay, now I have today's swim, right? I have today's race, and right. And so one thing that I recently have tried to refocus on is everything is kind of a means to an end, right? And so if you can just break it down into check marks, you get these little bits of accomplishments that kind of keep your, right? Like they keep you boosted up just a little bit so you can get to the next one. And I think when I get to a point where I'm not doing that, that's when I suffer the most, because you just suddenly feel trapped in your design, right? Like whatever your purpose is at that time. And it's super wild. Like, you know, I'm about to move. So I'm living in an apartment, moving to another apartment. And like, I'm ready to leave this apartment. And my brain's like, let's go now. And it's like, no, like it's day by day, enjoy it while you can, because once you leave, you don't go backwards, you know?
I think the mind is obsessed with that though. The mind is obsessed with the past and the future.
Yeah.
I think all of our brains are obsessed with the past and the future. And that's there for a reason, isn't it? That kind of problem solving tool helps us to survive an up and coming event. Where it's not very good is to live there.
Yeah.
Because we miss that present moment in time. And you're absolutely right. So for me, that what you were saying there, Sam, was that outcome focused is what the brain wants to obsess about. It wants to obsess about the outcome. It wants to go out with the outcome. It wants to go, where is it? You said I could have this around my neck, in my hands, in my bank account now. And the brain wants it now, and it gets really restless about it. The key is to move away from the outcome focus and focus on the process, and delve into the process and unpick it and unpack it so that you've got challenges. So when you wake up on a Monday morning, that Monday is a really important block of excellence in the whole process. But if you wake up on that Monday morning and you're obsessed about the outcome in 3 years' time, you miss the chance to put another block of excellence in place. And that's what becomes, I think that's what the shift in most athletes happens, is they all of a sudden switch onto that. they stop thinking about a 4-year cycle and start thinking about, right, this week, this is what I'm here to achieve that's going to add value to the 4-year cycle. Right. And next week, this is what I'm going to put in place to add value to the 4 weeks. And they just keep bang, bang, going through it. And what happens after a while is you start creating momentum, and that momentum, you don't want to let go. So you become obsessed about the process. The only downside to that is when you start to transition out the sport, that's when it becomes quite difficult.
Yeah.
That was a heck of a ride.
Because it's addictive. It becomes all you know. Yeah.
That's it. Because you've had a purpose. You woke up on a Monday morning, you had targets, times, distances, food to eat, everything's laid out. And now all of a sudden, you're not needed. You're now not needed. That was a hard 3 or 4 years. And I didn't know it at the time when I retired or expired from swimming. I held on for a long time, but I retired from swimming and didn't realize this was approaching, and it was a cliff edge for me. Even though I had a degree behind us, you know, I'm pretty smart. I stuck in at university and college and all of that. I had prospects, I had lots of good things lined up, but I just didn't have that purpose of how does this Monday fit into the big picture? How does this week fit into I didn't have that. And I'd done that for 20 years, pretty much week in, week out.
So can I ask you, how old are you?
I'm 42 now.
You're 42. You don't look a day older.
Would not have guessed at all.
Oh, thanks very much.
I thought you were like our age.
Anybody listening or watching right now, just understand, if you wanna look young, you gotta swim, right?
Yeah,
and not just for an hour, guys. It's 4 hours a day for 4 years. Right? No,
it's chlorine. It's chlorine all the way. Oh, thank you very much. No, I'm 42, so I've been through a few bits and pieces in my time, you know, and when I get up on stage, you know, I share my story. My story's called 2 Lengths of the Pool. And when I get up on stage and I share that story, I do think a lot of people go, what does this kid know? But I ain't a kid.
Yeah. I saw a picture, and the whole point of the picture was to go, hey, you can't guess how old this person is. And I'm like, okay, well, immediately I'm like, well, this picture's probably doctored or blah, 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 whatever. And it was of a girl. And so when you look at her, you're like, there's no way she's older than like 22, right? And she's like a 47-year-old or like a 45-year-old. It was something crazy. And I stared at that picture for a while, right? There's no way. But the thing is it's chlorine, right? No.
It must be.
Yeah. It's crazy because, like, obviously you lived a very focused part of your life, right? And health is a big part of that. If you're sick jumping into the pool, you're probably just going to float face down for a while. Right? And like it's going to be difficult to get the gold. But, you know, I guess I bring that up of, you know, I'm sure part of it's genetics, but the other part of it too is like you've been groomed to take care of your vessel, right?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that hasn't just gone away either, right? Like,
no, it hasn't.
Yeah.
No, I look after myself. Yeah.
So do you enjoy like fast food at all, or is it like, okay?
Asking for
I do
right now.
Yeah, of course I do. Hey, listen, I'm a massive fan of one word that I feel as though society has lost, and that is moderation. I feel as though we've lost that. We're either all or nothing. It's either go hit the gym hard, hit fitness hard, go and do an Ironman hard, or nothing. And instead, I just like, I like just staying fit, feeling good. And you know what? If my kids go, hey, can we go and get a burger somewhere? I'm like, let's do it. You know, and I want to teach my kids, like, when you go around my house, there's sweets, chocolate, indulgent stuff everywhere. And you know what? The kids don't pig out on it. They just don't, because it's there as a choice. Mm-hmm. Now, we've got friends who do not have a thing around the house. The kids have to eat it when they go out. They're always like, don't tell my mum and dad I've had these things, and they're craving them. Where I've always said to my kids, listen, I want to teach you that if you overindulge, it doesn't feel great. In fact, my little boy did it 2 years ago. He overindulged on popcorn, and I did say to him at the start, I said, listen, watching this movie, pace yourself. And he's, I know. He was 5 at the time. He knows better than dad. So he fills his face. Oh my God, he went so green halfway through the movie. And he threw up. And a lot of people would go, that's really irresponsible. But you know, the conversation we had later has been, it was epic. He said, do you know what, Dad? I should have really listened to you, but I didn't really think I would feel like this off that. And I'm never doing that again. And honestly, when he pulls out the popcorn now and he pulls out the sweets, you can see him measuring it out thinking, I don't want to feel like that again.
He learned that that was the style my parents had. And it works because you don't learn 100% from other people's lessons. Yes, you can take in, those stories, all of that, and kind of glean from it. But what really sticks is when you have that traumatic memory of that made me throw up, or that made me not feel good. And it really, that's the best teacher in my opinion.
Definitely. And I've been the same with my kids, like they've been through bits and pieces with friends and they've not been kind to their friends. And I sat my little girl down not too long ago and she's super sweet and she's super kind, but she went through a patch where she was being a little bit mean. And I said to her, it's okay to be angry, but it's never okay to be cruel. Yeah. And that one line, because she felt that pain of being cruel and being that person who was being cruel, it really hurt her, that one line, but it stayed with her and it's made her stop and go, hang on a second, I know how that feels and I don't want to go there again. But we've got to allow our kids and the next generation to experience failure. We've got to allow them to experience. In fact, when I used to, for the last 10 years, I've been going around education establishments, so primary schools, secondary schools, colleges, universities. And I'll do my motivational talk, but I'll also do some workshops. And some of the workshops are around kind of, making excuses is one, failure is another, how to handle it. And I put games in place whereby I get the groups up and they start playing games, but they're deliberately designed to fail. So deliberately design these games to push them back to the start. So they'll get like 5 games down the line. They've got to do 10 in order to pass the task. And they have to go right back to the start. And I keep doing it. And I keep doing it. And I keep doing it. And I watch them just lose it. And it's amazing. And there's always a point at which the group either disband, they go one of two ways. They either just fail and go for it and just think, oh, we're never doing it again. Or they find this next gear that they never knew they had and they push into it and they boss it. It's insane. But we have to experience that painful grind of failure, and it's horrible. It is horrible.
It's super difficult. And, it's really strange because you can find these lessons in so many different categories. It doesn't have to just be like the physical, like the fitness aspect of it, or like the diet aspect of it, or the spiritual or educational, right? Because if you put me with someone and I had to compete against them in academics, that's not a strong suit for me, right? If you give me a book and throw me in a pool, I'm probably going to drown. That's all I'm saying, right? But so food is a really interesting thing, right? Because people have gone out of their way to make a point of like, hey, I can lose weight only eating McDonald's, and it's like, great. We all know like that's not the healthiest way to do it, but yes, you can if you're paying attention. But I do think there's something to be said about, I'm a person that's in like the personal training world, right? And people want to talk about diet and stuff, and like, of course I pay attention to diet. I do have a basic understanding of it, but I'm not a nutritionist. And I'm also not a dietitian, right? And so what gets difficult is people be like, hey, you're a personal trainer. I'm pretty sure I saw you eat a Whopper from Burger King. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to deny that, right? Like I did do that. But like, again, moderation, right? Because it does get difficult. My brother and I are doing a challenge together. It's a 75-day thing. And part of it is a diet. Well, what we realized is even though it does kind of propose the question of, hey, can you handle doing this for 75 days where you have more physical activity? It's also, it forces you to break the autopilot that you're in, right? You got to drink more water. You need to pay attention to what you're eating for 75 days. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, like I want ice cream way more often than I actually acknowledge, or like I want the candy bar or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So we're past the halfway point. I think we have like 20. I'm guessing, because at this point, I don't have a mentality anymore of, hey, as soon as we finish the 75 days, I'm going to go eat a whole box of cookies and get some ice cream and I'm going to, right? It's turned into, hey, I really need to be careful of like what I eat, because it becomes this autopilot thing. And then all I'm doing is eating sweets all the time. Right. And so what I think is interesting is, hopefully, like with these kids that you put them through these tasks, like they start applying it to something as simple as, oh, hey, I want to work on my diet, right? Or like, hey, I don't want to be an Olympian, but I want to be physically fit. How do I create challenges for myself and be okay with failing at it? You know, like I went running the other day. Haven't ran in a while. It's been a minute. And I was like, all right, I'm going to try to run a mile. And I don't even remember what time I said. I didn't make it. I definitely struggled to run like a 8.5 to 9 minute mile, which is, I'm sure, fine. But like in my brain, I'm like, there are people running 5-minute miles.
Yeah, I know,
like,
it's insane.
Holy moly, right? But the trial and error to go from like a 45-minute mile to a 5-minute mile, it didn't happen overnight, you know?
Yeah. Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, whenever we set ourselves a challenge, I think that our egos can often get in the way of that, though.
Oh, yeah.
And an ego is not a bad thing, but a super ego is a really bad thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It gets in the way.
It does. It really does. And it's like, you know, I see all these challenges, and I've done a few myself. And I did one about 3 years ago where it was a diet related one, and I was just miserable. I was miserable. And it was my wife who was doing the challenge with, and she just said, why are we doing this? Like, what is the end goal? Because surely we make choices. I believe personally, we make choices because we feel we will be better at the end, or we will make ourselves feel better at the end.
Right.
If it doesn't do that, you just need to wake up and smell the coffee, don't you? Just go, this isn't working for me. It might work for everyone else. It doesn't work for me. And I was the same. I went in the gym and I got a personal trainer and I got really big and strong and what have you. And I loved it, absolutely loved it. But then I actually started to come down a little bit and reduce my muscle size. And I felt so much better for it. One, because I could maintain it. Two, it didn't feel like I had to obsess over it to get there. And three, I could fit everything else in my life around that body weight. I found my ideal body weight. I feel as though I've found it now. And I've just hit that stride where before I was kind of looking at what other people were doing and trying theirs, but feeling miserable. And I think that is the key, is to lock inside of you and go, is this for me? Yeah. And have that confidence to go, it's not for me. I don't want it. Yeah.
It brings up a very good point. And this can kind of go into a whole nother rabbit hole of diet culture in general. Yeah. And it's okay to quit something that doesn't serve you, isn't something that has a long-term reality. Yeah. Like I tried keto when it was starting to pick up, and I was like, okay, like this really works for some people. Yeah. I'm a little skeptical just because it's fat and like meats and cheeses, and I don't understand. And I did it for like a month and a half, and I was pretty good about it, and I lost a little bit of weight. But then at the end of the day, I was like, I don't feel great. I'm eating high fat things. It doesn't mesh well with my body. Like it may work for some people. I will not shame that. If it's your thing and you love keto and you're eating bacon and like avocado oil every day, good for you. But not sustainable.
And you know, you've hit on an absolutely key point there, is our feelings are our navigation system, and they change as you get older. You know, I'm in my 40s now, and I still don't feel any older than 9 in my head. I don't feel any older than 9, but I've genuinely, things do change. Taste buds change. The way my body is able to move changes. Instead of fighting it and saying things like, oh, I wish I could do that. I used to be able to squat twice that. I just squat what I can squat now, and I'm quite happy with it. And when you embrace that, there's a whole new level of enjoyment waiting for you. But when we're constantly going, I used to be this, but but I want to be that. We get trapped between this pinball machine and it's painful.
I think it's interesting because I can't like talk to people and go, hey, this is what you should eat. Because at the end of the day, you have to kind of figure it out. And one thing that's super duper weird is in, at least, you know, where we're from, there's a lot of, hey, just cut out carbs, you're going to lose all the weight. The thing is some of us really function well on carbs for energy source, and other people rely on fat, right?
Yeah.
So for a really long time, that's who I was. I was the carb guy. You give me carbs and I can levitate, right? You want me to pick up a building, give me some carbs, I'll pick it up. I'll do it right now. And they're like, okay, sure enough, just like Popeye with spinach, you gave me carbs and I ascended, right? But so I'm 33 and I just recently had that shift where when I eat carbs now, I want to go take a nap.
Wow.
Yeah, I want to go take a nap. And I'm like, okay. And so then, you know, somebody, you know, thankfully kind of gave me that direction of like, hey, have you tried switching the diet a little bit? You don't have to get rid of carbs, but eat more fat. So I did do that. And like one thing that works for me to like regulate, because my metabolism's dropped a little bit, is like fast, like have a fasting period of the day and then like kind of watch what I'm eating, high protein, whatever. And what was really weird is it was like, wow, I'm getting older and now I'm more of like, I like to get my resource for energy from fat. And I was like, okay, I guess that's who I am. But like kind of what you were saying, it's weird because our ego is like, well, I don't want to identify with that.
Exactly.
I don't drink avocado oil. And it's like, what do you mean you don't drink avocado oil? Like, you do now, buddy, right?
Yeah.
And I find it really interesting too, because it kind of resonated with me with what you were saying of, you know, even when I was like 25, right? I thankfully entered a part of my life where I was like, you know what? I'll try anything once. Like one time I tried raw octopus. That was a one-time thing for me. Yeah, that was a one-time thing for me. It wasn't alive, I'll tell you that. It wasn't like a live octopus, but it was not for me. And I'll probably never do that again, even knowing that my taste buds will change. The texture was not for me.
Oh, that's awful.
But yeah, so the interesting part is that being able to fail and trying new diets or trying new entertainment, even like I find that interesting about myself is I used to really like the horror genre, and I'm not saying I don't, but now it's like it needs to be a very specific type of this is what it's providing, right? Same thing with like music, right? And having the ability to kind of stick to your guns of, you know, a means to an end, so you can accomplish a goal is one thing, but you can still attack that goal differently if you change, right?
Definitely. I think there's a phrase that springs to mind that was said to me years ago. I think might have been my granddad. He said, you know, make sure in life at every step you face the right way. I was like, what do you mean? He said, most people face outwards, but to get real happiness and real joy with life, we have to go inwards.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's the key, is when something's not working, when you're not embracing something, when you're not kind of in your flow or in your groove, the chances are you're looking outwards. The real good chance you're facing the wrong way. When we face the right way, even on something as small as just adjusting our diet, when we face inwards, we get the answers. They're there. They're with us. We instinctively know it. Our subconscious knows the answers. It's incredible.
It is. And I'm gonna have to ask you to remind me, what's the title of that book you brought up earlier? Asking is Giving?
Ask and it is given.
Okay, I was almost there, right?
So close.
Yeah, you were really close. Yeah. I've got an interesting story about that. So a few years ago, that book came out in 2004 or 3. So in 2004, I was searching around. The internet wasn't particularly great back then. It was good, but you couldn't really order stuff like you can order stuff now. So I made an inquiry into this book. Couldn't find it anywhere. Went to Waterstones. Waterstones says, to get it into the country, you're probably looking at like 150 quid. I was like, I'm not paying that, no chance. Wow. So I kind of left it, but I kept checking. I kept going back to Waterstones bookstore and going in. Is it? No, it's not here. Okay. So then in 2005, I went on a training camp to Arizona, to the States. And thinking nothing of it, it was on my list of things that I wanted that book. And I arrived in a place called Scottsdale. Got to Scottsdale, and little did I realize, but the authors of that book were from Scottsdale.
Wow.
I was there for 3 weeks. In the middle weekend, one of the middle weekends, I didn't know all this at the time. I was in the back of a bus with all my teammates driving along. I saw this massive sign, book signing, asking it as given in the mall this weekend, Friday and Saturday and Sunday.
Did you just start screaming like at that point?
Oh my God, yeah. And I was like, oh my God, there's a book signing. Everybody thought I'd lost it. They were like, it's a book signing, get real. I ended up getting, I didn't get it signed because the queues were crazy, but I managed to get the book there, and I kind of saw them at the front signing books. And the whole premise of it is, if you ask for something, you throw it out there to whatever it is, whatever force you think it is, get it out there. There's a physical vibration there that actually exists. Your dreams exist somewhere. We've just got to be willing to allow it to come to us. And there's a big difference between working hard for something and that resisted work. And when we work hard and we just keep tiptoeing through things, it's incredible how, when we just trust that thing we can't see, how it comes. We've just got to be patient. And that was that story of that book, just always, every time I pick it up to read it, it just always makes me wonder how that happened. It really does.
Yeah, that was destiny.
A lot of it probably seems ironic, but like, I love what you're putting down. I've been very fortunate of acquiring friends over time that they get what you're talking about, and they've talked to me about it, and then I start seeing it, right? And you know what's so strange is that it's one of those things of, when you have the mentality of, in order to receive something, you have to give, right? So if you want to receive the Olympic gold medal, you've got to give 4 years, 5 years, decades of your life swimming in that pool, right? So for like, okay, hey, I want the promotion, it has to be something that you're focused on. Yeah. Maybe not day in, day out, but pretty consistently. And then you have to be willing to like pay the price, right? Like the dedication that goes towards it and stuff. And for some reason, like as we were talking, I started thinking about, I know I'm not going to say her name right. She's the singer, Billie Eilish.
Eilish,
yeah.
Yeah, every time I say Eilish, I feel like I'm saying eyelash, and then I feel like I'm being a jerk. No, but so she was really young, and it was like her and her brother were like making their music like on a laptop, and we were like, "Oh, you got lucky." We have no idea how long or what happened to them that led them to that laptop.
Yeah,
and like, even though it's not like, you know, I don't like dislike the music, it's just not the kind that I gravitate towards. But I do think that it's interesting, because I think she is a recent one where, oh, well, they just gave it to her, right? Like now she's, you know, winning Grammys or whatever she's doing.
Yeah.
And it's like, she gave something to receive that.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, I know for a fact, now that I've entered my 30s and I'm doing that, I know for a fact that there were a lot of things that happened to me during my 20s that were blessings, and I'm very grateful for.
Definitely.
But I never ever was realizing what I was giving to receive. It was just happening, right? And so, you know, like, you come across this book, and all of a sudden it is in your face of, hey, this is what you wanted. This is what you wanted. Here it is.
Like, hey, you
right?
should read this.
The same. You're so right. The same thing happened with a set of DVDs that I wanted even earlier than that. So I was after a set of DVDs that were all about this kind of stuff, about kind of tapping into that universal energy and trusting it. And that was kind of the start of my journey. But I'd seen an advert in the UK, gone to Australia for a training camp yet again, and I knew it was being sold in Australia and in America, but was coming to the UK, and the date kept getting pushed back and pushed back. This was back in DVD territory, this. And went to Australia, went everywhere on the Gold Coast, up and down the Gold Coast in every DVD shop. And I was literally at my wit's end looking for this DVD. And gets into this in my head, the last DVD shop I was going to try. I think I was annoying so many of my friends. They were like, I'm not coming out with you on Saturday to look for this DVD.
Oh, wow.
So I get in the place, get on into the counter, and I said to this guy, and I must have had that tone in my voice of, you're my last hope. And I said, I'm after this DVD. It's about this. And he said, we will be selling that, but we're not going to sell it for the next 3 months. It's on promotion at the moment. And we're kind of trying to drum up a little bit of interest in it. So I thought, oh, right, okay, that's it. And I turned around and I walked out, and I got just down the street, and this guy came running after us. He tapped me on the shoulder. He said, listen, I'll give you our demo one. I went, what? He went, I'll give you the demo one, as long as you don't mind this demo written across the bottom, scrolling across. He said, but it's the full pack of 12 DVDs. You can have it. And I went, what, how much do I owe you? He said, oh, you just have it for free. And he handed me it.
Wow.
That's even more insane.
Stood in the street, and I was like, am I mate? Yeah.
You're like, where's Ashton Kutcher? Is he
yeah. And now those DVDs, that set of DVDs was well over £100. And I was like, to be honest with you, I probably didn't think this through because I didn't have the cash at the time to pay that. But it just goes to show that if you put it out there and you throw it out there and you're willing to, like you say, Sam, have a bit of something about you to give something back and trust it. Okay, I wasn't as patient as I normally am then, but that persistence paid off. But it wasn't desperation. And I think that's the key. But I think going back to what you said earlier, when you set that, I think there's a big difference between a dream and a fantasy. And I think there's a lot of people believe that they want something, but actually it's just a fantasy. Because if you say to them, well, hey, let's go now, they'll go, well, maybe not today. I'm kind of thinking maybe in 2 weeks' time I'll start.
Right.
Yeah.
That means they just love the idea of it. But when somebody's got that dream, that urge, and you say, hey, I think I can help you with that, let's do it. They go, yeah, brilliant. I'll clear my diary, let's go.
Yeah.
There's a big difference there between those two different energy types.
Yeah.
And it's just about getting honest with it. If we said to you right here, right now, let's go do it, would you do it? Chances are those people who were just pipe dreaming it would go, nah, it's okay. Mañana.
Exactly.
That's so wild. I think a lot about myself and the stuff that I'm trying to learn now, because, you get all this information from hindsight, and I do accept and realize that there were a lot of things where I just did what I was told.
Yeah.
Hey, man, like, you need to go fry these chips. Hey, man, you need to go run this fast. Hey, man, you need to fix that car. Like, whatever it was. And I was just like, okay, that's what I'm doing now, right? And there were a lot of fantasies that I had where I was like, man, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I had opportunities where, like, I could have tried, right? But you're 100% right. I was like, I don't really want to do that. So then you start going, well, what do I really want to do? And I think it's really hard obviously we're all still young, right? I mean, I've met 70-year-olds that are still young, right?
Yeah.
And so I fight this weird thing that was kind of taught to me, or I don't know where I picked it up from, of like, oh, well, you're 30, over the hill, it's all downhill, right? And like, what, right? And so I think a lot about that question of what is really important to me, that if someone was like, hey, man, I can help you get that I would literally drop everything that I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of us, we do not know the answer to that. I'm still kind of on the fence. I have a pretty good idea of like, what is that one thing that no matter what, that's what I want and that's what I'm going for.
Yeah.
But then as soon as there's like resistance, that's where the answer changes too, right?
Yeah.
Hey, do you want to be Olympian? Yes. All right, jump in this pool, do 2 hours. Okay, well, it was a good run, guys. I'm retiring from my Olympic career.
Yeah, it's true though, and you'll either find a way or you'll find an excuse. I don't make it any more complicated than that. And I'm really honest with myself. There's we were watching the England match earlier on. So England were playing about 2 hours ago in the UK, and they won 4-0. Great game. And I was sat with my little girl who's 10, and she's quite aware of my past. So she's like, oh, my dad's an Olympian. She's dead proud of it, but she doesn't over-egg it. It's really relaxed. And she said, hey, Dad, did you not think about being a footballer? And the words that came out of my mouth were totally different to what I was actually thinking inside. I went, yeah, but I just wasn't any good at football and I didn't get a chance. And actually, I paused and I went, that's not true. I had loads of chances. I just didn't make myself good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she went, oh, really? I went, yeah, I got loads of chances. Loads. Friends would come and knock. Do you want to come play football? Nah, not really. I'm doing something other than that. I didn't have an interest in it. Period.
Yeah.
I liked the idea of being a multi-millionaire footballer running about. That's awesome. Yeah, let's do it. But I got plenty of opportunities, and actually I was pretty athletic. I reckon I could have turned my hand to most things and been okay. I just didn't give myself the chance. And that's what I corrected it straight away. And my little girl went, oh, that was really honest. It's like, yeah, it hurt a little bit.
I'm accepting that currently again, I had that conversation of, hey, you didn't waste time. Like I had to go willy-nilly, just floating around like a butterfly, just having life happen to me before I could go, okay, hey, there is the option of, focus in and decide this is what I want and go after it. And I think it's like a quote from Will Smith said it in an interview. And so, when you're a celebrity, they just repeat what you say over and over. And one of the things he said was, it's literally thousands upon thousands of hours going towards that one thing to get to that point of like, hey, I am this. And nobody, including myself, really goes, all right, 1,000 upon 1,000 upon 1,000 hours. That's it? All right, sign me up, guys. I'm going to do it, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that's something that's great for your kids, to be able to have someone who can go, hey, you know what? I'm going to be 100% honest with myself and you, and just kind of point out like that truth. But I wonder, like, if someone pointed that out to me as a kid, would I have been receptive to it? Right? Because
probably not,
like like I probably been like, okay, buddy, and then I just would have kept doing the thing.
It's interesting though. I do think on some subconscious level we are taking things in all the time. And I'm a massive believer in asking questions. I ask a lot of questions as opposed to give a lot of advice. So I do ask my kids questions in the hope that when they're talking and when they're responding, they're also listening to themselves, because there's a massive difference between listening to respond and listening to understand. I do a lot of coaching now. I coach a lot of clients around the world, one-to-ones, businessmen and women, entrepreneurs, and I absolutely love it. And when I'm sitting listening and I'm asking those questions, I'm doing the same thing as what I would with my kids. It sounds bizarre, but it's true. And that is one, just listening. What's really going on? What's really going on here?
Yeah.
Because most questions are statements. Most questions that people ask you are actually statements.
Yeah.
So what my little girl was asking me in that time, she wasn't asking me whether I wanted to be a footballer. She was asking, is it possible to be one? That's what she was asking. She wanted me to fill in the blanks. Now I just went on and talked about what my past was like, just briefly with her. But the question I really should have asked her back was, do you think you could?
Yeah.
Because that's what she was asking. And when you look at life, next time you're chatting to someone and they ask you a question, think of it as a statement. Take out the question bit and pitch it back to them and listen to the answer. It's often beautiful and something that it's really profound for them and really a profound process for you as well.
Wow.
Yeah, that just took our whole podcast to a next level, because we're just gonna go back and forth.
So what I'm picking up, well, because like it immediately made me think of, I do have a understanding now that I didn't have before about a lot of us are just projecting ourselves onto people. Right. And whether we're aware of it or not, like maybe I'm having a bad day and someone's like, hey, what's up, buddy? And you just take it out on them, and it has nothing to do with them saying hello. It's like we're just expelling, sometimes it's joy, but sometimes it's negativity, right? And that's so wild, because now I'm going through my head of like,
now he's overthinking everything.
Right? So there's a whole thing there where you're not wrong, right? A lot of us are just trying to find our time and place to like talk, right? And even when we do talk, a lot of the time, a lot of us don't feel like we're being listened to, because maybe there is a subconscious understanding that people are, hey, I hear you, but I'm not understanding it. I'm not breaking it down or soaking it in or whatever. And honestly, I mean, speaking from my own perspective of sometimes I feel everything's moving so fast, I don't have the ability to take the time to, okay, hey, like, give me a second, right? Because if you were to ask me a question on this podcast and I sat there for 10 minutes and like really soaked it in and thought about it, people would be like, did it end?
Is he
the
okay?
conversation over? Is he? And I'd be like, and here it is. Here is the 10-minute answer, right? But I'm sure that that's, even if it takes a while for someone to comprehend that information, that has got to be mind-blowing information for some of your clients. I mean, I'm sure Megan and I for days are going to be like, so what I'm picking up here is...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think, we've set life up to be a really fast thing, haven't we? Even from the start of the podcast, you said this is going to be 45 to an hour, depending on how it goes. And you set the parameters then. We tend to have meetings that are an hour long.
Yeah.
We set these goals and these targets, and it's part of a hand-me-down culture. So the guys who were in business before said, you meet for an hour and you turn up at 9 and you leave at 5. Did you know that? All right, okay. And we become these traditionalists who just follow the next line, become part of the hand-me-down. Now, the interesting thing is, tradition is something handed down by people who are dead now. They're not here. They ain't here. They don't know what life's like now. And this is what I've loved about lockdown and everything that's happened is, actually now there's a real opportunity to flip things on its head, to change things up a bit. This global pandemic has given us an excuse to change the day. How does your work and week look? Design it yourself now. Yeah. And that's exactly what the forward-thinking people, who were always forward-thinking anyway, have done. They've made the most of it. People like you and I who've gone, bit of a bad situation, what are we going to do? Hey, let's create a podcast. Let's do this. Let's do something completely different. Would you have ever had the time and the space or the inclination to do it? It might have been in the back locker, but we were to kick the can down the street. I would never have gone online with my coaching service, with my speaking services. Never. I'd have gone, no way. I need an audience. I need to sit in a coffee shop with someone. I've had more business in the last 6 months than I've had in 3 years. That's crazy.
That is.
And better business as well.
I laugh because due to circumstances, it was like I went to work and they're like, hey, did you hear? And I was like, this has got to be a joke. And then like 10 p.m. at night, we had a meeting and it was like, hey, we're closed. Gyms are closed. Yeah. Oh, okay. So it wasn't a joke. And I swallowed my foot, but I literally said, this won't last more than 3 weeks.
Me too.
We all thought
And then the next thing I know is I like hurt myself. I wasn't able to like exercise. I didn't have gyms. I wasn't going running, blah, blah, blah. And I had the first time in my life where I went, you know what? I don't care. It doesn't matter. And I ate whatever I wanted. And then on top of that, I just sat around a lot because, again, the circumstance. And it was this weird, I look at it now as like this weird opportunity in my life where I gained 30 pounds. And I was like, that's a predicament. And I wasn't like worried about it. Once I got to a certain weight, I started going like, all right, whatever. But then the gyms opened up. And what happened is because I gained that weight and I had been the heaviest I'd ever been, when I went back to the gym, I had more ability to push. I had more ability to pull. Yeah. I got stronger than I've probably ever been in my life. Yeah. And I eventually got to a point where I was like, oh God, I developed habits where I was like, Twix, don't mind if I do. Like bowl of ramen, please and thank you. Like second serving of cake, absolutely. And so I had to go, okay, I have a goal now. What do I need to do to adjust, right? So now I'm in that like, I get kind of cranky because I'm not eating as much carbs as I want, or I'm not eating it right. And so I'm leaning down, but I'm trying to maintain that strength. And it's super crazy to me because now I look back and go, wow, I got really nervous there because I had just given up, but really it turned into, I took that situation, morphed it into something good.
Definitely.
And anybody can do that at any point in time. You can decide right now, right? Hey, this is my situation. This is what's bad about it. I'm going to turn it around. This is what I'm doing. And I'm going to acknowledge it, right?
Surrender to the challenge. It's surrender to the challenge. There's a big difference between, like Megan said before, it's okay to quit. I feel like that's a surrender. It's more of a, acknowledging that this is not for me,
Right.
or acknowledging that I'm going to go in a different direction here. And it's amazing what starts to come to the forefront. You know, like at the start of lockdown, I couldn't get some of my clients over the line. I just couldn't, you know, so I just backed off, and then lockdown hit and I thought, oh, well, they're not going to come to me now. And all the ones prior to lockdown that I couldn't get in the bag all came flooding through once I started to move things in a different direction.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, you know, I feel at times, and I'm guilty of it, I don't know if you guys are, of having one foot on the accelerator and another on the handbrake. And it's like,
just doing donuts.
I'm going somewhere, but I'm just not quite going how I want to go. And I think the key is to release the handbrake, find out what the resistance is. And then now the next level, I feel, is to realize there was never a handbrake in the first place.
It's fake. Yeah. It's not even there. Like you just keep flying down. And I think the shutdown, the pandemic, the whole thing has brought out that introspection in people because they're forced to sit with themselves a lot more. Definitely. Maybe it was a small period of time and it's changed. It depends like what your living situation is, but it forced you to get out of that routine and just, like Sam said, sit with yourself and do something you wouldn't normally do. And then afterwards, because now it's a constantly changing environment of what we're living in, you have to adapt again and then make the choice. Do I go back to what I was doing before everything hit the fan? Or do I want to change this? And I think all of us in some way have changed our direction because the clusterfuck, I don't have a nice way of saying it, of what's happened in the last year.
Definitely. I think when these moments come around, you know, you've got two choices. Do you want to be better or better?
Yeah.
When these things come around, do you want to step up and find another gear, dig a bit deeper, get a bit uncomfortable? It does get a little bit awful, but actually at the other end of it, you feel better, you act better, you see better. When we don't, I can see a lot of people really bitter, really angry, who can't see why this has come around. Maybe we're not meant to figure out why it's come around. Maybe we're not meant to figure out, maybe we need to ditch that. Maybe that's wasted energy. Maybe we just need to accept it and go, okay, playing field's changed, not how I'd hoped. However, this is what I'm thinking now. And I think when we accept that part as a challenge, then different things start to come our way. You know, I'll look at things very differently now. Maybe it's an age thing, I don't know, but I'll look at things like, I was always meant to be in this moment in time. I'm always meant to meet you guys somehow. If a global pandemic didn't happen, I guess we would have met on, I don't know, maybe a trip, or whether I was in the States or whether you were in the UK.
When you went training,
when I'm training camp,
Right.
But maybe we were meant to meet. But I do feel as though I was always meant to be in this place at this time, at this moment, experiencing this. Whether that's a good thing, a bad thing, or somewhere in between. And that kind of loosens things up for me. And when things do hit me sideways, I go, oh, okay. Well, maybe we're here to learn something. Maybe we're here to be taught something, and maybe something big's coming.
So two things, and we're about to segue here, but have you ever heard of a book? I've brought this up on the podcast before, but there's a book called The Power of Now.
I knew it.
Yeah,
I knew you were gonna
love it.
Okay.
That book changed my life, Sam.
Yeah. Okay.
That book changed my life. Yeah.
But spoiler alert, there have been people, several people who are like, yo, dude, you seemed really about that book. I'm going to go check it out. And they're like, what is this?
Yeah.
And so like I did the audiobook, and it's a very I joke, like if you're not wide awake, you're gonna fall asleep because it's so relaxing, right?
Yeah.
But it's also very profound. I mean, there were multiple times where I made it 15 minutes of listening to the book and had to go, all right, I need a second, because I had
100%.
Right. Yeah. So one of the things that I like to say to myself all the time that resonates with what you said is, I am exactly where I am supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can say that to other people. You are exactly where you are supposed to be.
Yeah.
And people are like, hey, this just happened to me. It's really, really bad. And I go, I'm really, really sorry. Yeah. I didn't decide that, but it happened because it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And then of course, we can just deep dive into like, okay, what is free will? What is this? What is that? Right.
Yeah.
But all just very great things. I did want to give you an opportunity, Chris, really quick to, the spotlight, right? Of, do you have anything that you would recommend, or a piece of advice that you would provide to our listeners that you think is useful or beneficial, or something that maybe got you through, becoming an Olympian?
Yeah.
No pressure.
I know I've got so many things. I mean, the main one is be prepared to do the basics better than anyone else. That's
Ooh,
it.
I like that.
I think a lot of people look for a new shiny toy, a new shiny thing. And honestly, when I stopped looking for new shiny stuff and just tightened up what I was doing even better and better every day, and agonized over that sort of stuff, things just changed. My training changed overnight. And that all came from that one conversation with my sports psych about me doing what I normally do just a little bit better, and stop looking over the fence for new stuff. Like we're obsessed with new gadgets and new things and new training aids. And actually, especially if you learn to become great at something, just be prepared to roll your sleeves up and do the basics better than anyone else. And you'll lay a foundation like nothing else.
Talk about a mindset. I like that.
Cool.
If someone's gonna ask me later, what are you doing? I'm doing the basics better than anyone else. You're like, all right then, buddy. But I guarantee you that if you say that to someone and they take the time to think about it, it's a oh shit moment, right? Like, oh my goodness, like, oh, like I just unlocked something here, right?
Yeah.
That is awesome. I really appreciate that.
Cool.
So Megan, you know what it is. You know what time it is.
It is that time, but I am gonna sidebar it real quick because I'm gonna go all the way back to the DVD story. It triggered something in me that I'm just now remembering. Cool. I grew up on like British television in the States, like digesting it with my parents and stuff like that, just because we like that humor. Monty Python, like
cool.
Peep Show, Mitchell Weblook. And back when DVDs were still a thing, because I couldn't stream British television, I had to go buy British DVDs.
Yeah.
And there were so many failures in that journey. I would get stuff that was region locked, so I couldn't play it on my DVD player.
Wow.
There's the story I wanted to tell was my poor husband, like in more recent years, tried to buy me the DVD set of the Peep Show, which is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And he ordered it on Amazon. We got it. I was like excited for it. I didn't watch it immediately. And then I went to put it in the DVD player. It wasn't region locked. So that was cool. Like we got past that. It was not the Peep Show. It was just called Peep Show. And it's not as bad as you think. Like
I was going to say.
Stop it there.
Yeah. Oh no.
But it was a Spike TV promotion video called Peep Show, and it was just like weird little clips from their promos, and I was so sad because all I wanted to do was watch like one of my favorite shows. And it was a struggle back in the DVD world.
Yeah, it was.
It was hard out there.
Definitely.
I can only imagine the feeling of like, here we go. Wait a second. What am I? No. It was so sad. But back to our regular program. So socials, you can find us at Friends of Failure on pretty much everything. Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff. We are also on YouTube if you're listening to us in audio right now. So if you want to see our faces, go for it. Please rate, subscribe on whatever you're listening or viewing, just because we want feedback. We want to know what we can do better, what we can do worse. Whatever you want to give us. And then our favorite shout out is for you guys to send in your own failure stories. These can be deep and meaningful, or they can just be stupid and funny, like anything you want to send to us. Our email for that is friendsoffailurepodcast@gmail.com, or you can call our infamous voicemail box that we have named Ethel at 916
304-3345.
Yeah, and when she says anything like 2008, Facebook is not off the table, guys. You could talk about.
I'm pretty sure you put that in every episode at this point.
I hope so, because at this point, like, it's an Easter egg, right?
He's basically begging people to like bully him on the internet.
Yeah. Go look at pictures of right after I graduated high school. It'll be hilarious, guys. Let's do it. Awesome. Chris, thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. And of course, we like to leave everyone with this. Life is happening for you, not to you. So go out there and fail, guys.
If it's not I'm stronger than you, it's I'm wiser than you, I'm more loving than you, I'm more tolerant than you, I'm more sophisticated than you. It doesn't matter what it is, but this constant competition is going on. This is the secret. This is the secret. You can't make a mistake.